I got off this series this week now that the fundraising activities are done, and I've got a little bit of time today. Let us discuss the New York Rangers. Rangers. Um, the Rangers are a fascinating team because they fall out of the playoffs this year, and there's no doom and gloom in Ranger land. None. There isn't. Even though you got a goalie who's up there in years, and you've got a core that's good, not great, but there's hope. Let's look at it. Zibanejad's the top moneymaker right now. That's going to change. He makes $5.35 million. That's his cap hit until 2021-2022 when he becomes UFA. Chris Kreider, $4.625 million for the next 2 years when he becomes UFA. Yeah, I hear you, Montreal fans. I'm just pretending I don't hear you. Zuccarello, $4.5 million next year, and then he's a UFA. Ryan Spooner's restricted free agent with arbitration rights. The same can be said for Kevin Hayes and Vladdy Nemesnikov. Nemesnikov's going to be interesting. How much money does he get and how much term? Nemesnikov looked great at the beginning, but is Nemesnikov a 45 to 50 point player, or is he a 60 point player? The way they pay him, and then his subsequent production could go a long way to deciding how competitive and how excellent these guys are and how quickly. Bolesky, $1.9 million for 2 more years. They'll probably bury that. Jesper Fast, $1.85 million for the next 2 years. Desharnais, a UFA. I don't think they bring him back. Buchnevich has 1 more year at $925K, so they can start negotiating an extension with him. And it'll be interesting to see how things work out for Buchnevich now. There were a lot of Rangers fans that were not happy with the way that he was deployed by Ilan Vigneault. Vigneault's out now. So there's definitely some room for Buchnevich to grow and for them to talk extension and see how much he's worth to the organization right now. Jimmy Vesey's a restricted free agent this summer with arbitration rights. Vesey, of course, came in a lot of hullabaloo about him when he was signed. But ultimately, I don't know that Vesey lived up to any of the hype. Cody McLeod's UFA. I don't know that they bring him back, but this is a soft forward group. Maybe they bring McLeod back. Holland, $625K next year, and then he's UFA, and then Carey's a UFA this summer. Nieves, technically he's in the minors right now, but he'll be on the main roster. He's a restricted free agent with arbitration rights this summer. Other interesting prospects, of course, Letary, Anderson, Elias Anderson, Hedel. Those are the ones up front. Georgiev, who I don't have in the roster, but he, I think, is the backup next year. I think they saw enough of him to say, okay, we'll keep him in next year. And then Shesterkin comes over next summer. And that's key. And then I've got Ronning on the board because, Vancouver Giant, his dad's Cliffy, and I really want to see Ty make it. So come on, Ty Ronning, make it to the NHL. On the blue line, Shattenkirk makes $6.65 million for another 3 years. And again, this is a very reasonable contract, and it's really weird that the number 1 UFA last summer got a reasonable contract. It's sort of like, I don't know, GM's learned or something. But Mark Stahl at $5.7 million for the same period of time. Does he get moved? Is this the summer that Mark Stahl gets moved? Does he go to Carolina to play with his brother? Does he go to Minnesota to play with his brother? And Minnesota fans are like, we don't want him. We got a really solid blue line. No. I tend to agree, but I do wonder where he's going to go. Do the Rangers retain some salary to get him out? Because the rest of the blue line, I think they're in good shape. O'Gara, they got from the Bruins. He's a decent depth guy. I think he's a 5'6" guy, and I think he can help them. And then Shea and O'Gara are both restricted free agents with arbitration rights. I'm going to guess Shea gets more money than O'Gara. But Shea didn't have the advancement in his second year that we might have expected after his first. So I don't think Shea's going to be as expensive as he might have been, but he also probably won't sign as long-term a contract as he otherwise might have. Pionk, he's got 1 more year at $925,000, then he's a restricted free agent. D'Angelo, I'm on the fence with. I think he's a number 7 guy. I don't know that he's ever going to move up beyond that. So he's a restricted free agent next summer. And Gilmore, restricted free agent with arbitration rights. What happens with Pionk, Gilmore, and Shea? That's your core of your defense moving forward. At least the young core. I mean, you're going to have to add a little bit to that, but I really like what the Rangers are doing with the blue line. And Gilmore and Pionk look good in the games they played for the Rangers after the season was basically over. Kampfer's just a utility guy. $650K for one more year, and then he's a restricted free agent. And Ryan Sproul's a UFA. I don't think they bring him back. I'd be kind of surprised if they did. Lundqvist, $8.5 million for 3 more years. Does he play all those years? Now, we know he's coming back next year, and we know that he turned down the option of being traded out. So the Rangers were willing to trade him this year. And he decided, no, I'm going to stick around. I'm okay with being part of the rebuild. And the Rangers decided, yeah, and we want you here for this. I think he's got 1 more year as a starter, and then Shesterkin comes in, and I think he'll be given every chance at the job. Unless the Bulgarian brute Georgiev comes in and makes something happen next year. Pavlik, on the other hand, he's UFA this summer, and I think Pavlik's going to end up in Europe. I don't see Pavlik, and yet while I say that, there are enough teams that have goaltending issues. Maybe Philly picks him up. Maybe Philly will run with 4 goalies. Who knows? But Pavlik's an interesting one in that we kind of expected his career to go a different direction than it has, and it would be kind of sad on some level if it ended this way. But I have a funny feeling that it will. But again, I'm very often surprised by teams picking up goaltenders and thinking, what do they see in this guy? So we'll see. And of course, the buried contract of Brendan Smith, $3.25 million. They buried it during the season because that signing was a disaster. And yet, at the time it was signed, everybody agreed it looked like a good deal, good cap hit, good length. Everything looks fine. Sometimes the way things look on July 1st, not the way things turn out once the season starts. Cap space, well, they've got an $80 million... I've been working with, in these videos, an $80 million cap for next year. That's the assumption it's going to go up. That would give them almost $30 million in cap space, which brings up the interesting question, and I'm going to bring it up again because it is interesting to me. This forward group, you add John Tavares to this forward group, and it's a playoff team. And I know, Tavares plays with the Islanders. He would never sign with the Rangers. But what if he did? There are plenty of examples of players crossing enemy lines and playing with a reviled team, and it does happen. And I've got to think, if there's a team that could offer John Tavares money, term, and a chance to win, these guys aren't that far off. Yes, they missed the playoffs. Yes, they ended up down in basically the same position as the Islanders. The Islanders went on that run at the end to screw themselves out of a good draft position. But the Rangers have a lot of enticing players for John Tavares. They have 3 first-round picks this year, which is insanity. 2 second-round picks and 2 third-round picks. And they still have their 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th round picks as well. So 7 draft picks in the first 2 rounds. Do they try to take those 2 seconds and get another first-round pick? Do they try to bundle 2 of those first-round picks to move up in the draft as well? It's a good draft. The Rangers are very smart doing what they've done. And this is part of the reason why I'm thinking that this rebuild could be accelerated. Because this roster isn't a bad roster. They just had a bad run at the start of the year, and then they tailed off at the trade deadline. But there's still parts here to like for this team. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with that cap space. Do they spend it? Do they keep it for themselves? And how much money are some of these free agents going to get? How much does Nemesnikov get? What about Spooner? Don't reward Spooner for just this great 15, 20 games he had with the Rangers. Look at his whole body of work. Don't get romanticized into believing that he's a 65, 70 point player when in reality he's probably a 45, 50 point guy. Because again, when a GM makes that miscalculation and pays a guy based on a projection rather than based on what they've done in their career, those are the contracts that come back to haunt you. But they've got some decisions to make on the blue line, but they got a lot of cap space to do it. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I think the Rangers are in good shape. I think this was just a down year for them, and I think they bounce back next year. But let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. Just happened upon this video. And hey, the Metro just kind of had this weird dip they went through. Remember early in the season we were talking about how fantastic the Metro was from 1 through 8. And then by the end of the year we were talking about how crappy it looked. So things can change fast. But let me know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you again soon.